Welcome to Letters from Norway, offering an American perspective from Oslo, with your host, Nick Cameron.
So I will continue here with my thoughts on Bitcoin. There are many. This is my perspective on Bitcoin. It very much reminds me of the Dutch tulip mania of 1636 to 1637. It's where people were, mortgaging their houses to buy tulip bulbs in Amsterdam. And it was one of the first manias of its kind where people gave everything for something that they perceived to have value. And then all of a sudden, these tulip bulbs became very abundant very quickly, and a lot of people lost all their money. But instead of everyone coming up with a different kind of tulip bulb, now everyone's coming up with a different kind of coin. Did you guys know that there are at least 10 crypto coins out there? When I was researching this, I found out there was even a crypto coin or a Bitcoin for dogs called Doggy Coin. And then Max Kaiser has issued one. And even Vladimir Putin is going to have a Bitcoin of his own. Maybe I should have one too. So that kind of, negates one of the properties of money that, please see the show notes about being scarce, based on a scarce resource. It's digital. We see what digital can do. It can copy and paste, and copy and paste till infinity. So that right there is a big weakness. Now, they always argue that there's a finite supply of Bitcoins. Right. There's always supposed to be like 40 or 50 million of them, and it's going to stop in 2030. But you can keep subdividing them, into smaller and smaller pieces. So instead of, adding like paper money, they keep printing more paper and changing the zeros going up. Here they subdivide into smaller and smaller fractions. So they keep adding zeros on the other side of the decimal point, on the left side of the decimal point, making them smaller. So you'll have to have like 1/1,000,000,000th of a Bitcoin will be worth $1, where last year it was 1/1,000,000,000th, and the year before it was 1/1,000,000th. And that kind of plays in the analogy that, like in Zimbabwe, it took 1 billion Zimbabwe dollars to buy a loaf of bread, where the year before it took like 100,000 Zimbabwe dollars to buy a loaf of bread. So they're just going to play with this kind of money on the other side of the decimal point, because most people think in terms of whole numbers, and they're not thinking in terms of the decimal numbers, that you can keep subdividing decimals infinitely, as well as increasing the whole numbers to infinity as well. So keep that one in mind. Now, let's put Bitcoin in perspective of social media and search engines. Now, I don't know if you remember search engines 10 or 20 years ago. There was no Google, or it was, but it was very small and obscure. It was Yahoo. Yahoo was the unstoppable force. Everyone thought they would be around for the next 100 years. They were the AT&T of its day. But now it's all but forgotten. I mean, there's just been some recent scandals about Yahoo, or they're getting bought by somebody, who knows. Back in the day, Yahoo's rival wasn't Google, it was Lycos. Now, who knows what the heck happened to Lycos? But I used to use the Lycos search engine when it came out. I thought it gave very good results. It was Boston-based, and a bunch of very smart guys made it, but it's just disappeared into nothingness. Also, the same with social media. Facebook wasn't the first one. When I'm 46 going on 47, I remember Friendster. That was one of the very first social medias out there. It was this whole concept of networking. And then that died off, and there was MySpace. MySpace was like an unstoppable force. Everybody had a MySpace account, and every business was on there. It was very busy. All of a sudden, it's not there anymore. And there was even another one called Orkut, which was very popular in India, Estonia, Brazil, and some parts of the US. I used to be on Orkut. Actually, I thought that was very easy to use, and it was very good. It was pretty cool. And I think it was Google took it over or something, but it's gone. And that was a household name even 10, 15 years ago. So think about that when you think about electronic and digital currencies. What happened to all these other electronic mediums that we are using? There isn't a good track record for first movers that are pure internet plays. Anything created by moving a mouse and typing on a keyboard is very vulnerable to replacement and is always in constant flux. Now, the other thing that worries me about Bitcoin is these origins, its sinister origins. Do you really think some old man named Satoshi Nakamoto created this out of nowhere in the midst of the 2009 financial crisis? It's not like that. It's not like in the movie Iron Man, where there's some genius sitting in a cave in Afghanistan just making stuff up. This isn't really how things are invented in real life. And it never really was either. I don't think there's any invention that just came out of a vacuum. Innovation happens over time and collaboratively. People are building on what other people have done or they've heard, and learning both from their mistakes and failures, from other people's mistakes and failures, and then they're just doing an iteration of that. In fact, most innovation is just an improvement of something else they saw or something else out there. I'm a nuclear engineer by education. I went to Kansas State in the early 90s and even operated a nuclear reactor, believe it or not. So by default, that means I'm also a mathematician. I don't think any single person could have come up with this blockchain on a whim, so quickly to respond to the financial crisis. The NSA and CIA, as I mentioned before, are recruiting the smartest people in America and actually even in the world to work on complex math-related problems, computer science-related problems. And they are given all the resources of a government to sit around and think of stuff and to think of where things are going. So I'm pretty sure that they've been monitoring the paper currency situation and seeing how that's being inflated and it's going out of control. And they must know that they need to do something. And they must have known this for a while. I mean, Jim Rickards in his books talk about when he worked at the CIA that they would war game the currency crisis, like how this would affect a warfare situation. So the NSA and the CIA and all these other government think tanks have had a lot of time to think about this. And I think the 2009 financial crisis was an ideal time to do some testing. Like I said, they've been working on this a while. They want to take precautions against the dollar. They have all of the resources and the purpose and the will to create an alternate currency. And just like we talked about earlier about a new form of slavery being introduced by using inflation and subsistence wages and getting people to take loans. It was kind of done covertly and sneakily. This is kind of reminiscent of that, in my opinion. So Bitcoin, in my opinion, is a tool for controlled opposition. And it was set up by the state to play on the emotions of the disenchanted, especially the smart disenchanted people, the ones who can do the most damage. I don't know if you remember the book 1984 by George Orwell, but it's where the government, there was a part of the book where the government even had control and spies in the quote-unquote parole district in the shady part of town where people thought they could get away from the government's watchful eye. And it turned out that was all set up by the government to kind of catch these uncontrollable people, these willy-nilly people who don't quite conform. If you remember Winston, the main character throughout the story, he thought he was getting away by going to that parole district, and enjoying the finer things in life. But little did he know that everything he did was being recorded. They had complete control. Governments very much understand statistics. You have like 66.7% of the people fit under the bell curve, and then you have some deviance on both ends. On one end, these are people that just can't keep up, and on the other end, these are people that you got to really watch. So they know this, and they got to design something to trap the deviants, because they can't be trapped through normal means. Another interesting fact, I don't know if you all know this, but Larry Ellison got his start while he was working at Ampex. It's a giant IT company back in the day. He created a database for the CIA called Oracle. It's a name that he took for himself and started his own empire. But the Oracle database actually started out as a product for the CIA. And what also, I'll just keep listing off a few things that make me suspicious of Bitcoin. You have these Winklevoss brothers buying this stuff too and wanting to start a fund. These are some really smart guys. You would think they'd have something better to do than play with electrons. They could save the world or something, but it looks like they want to play with electrons. So that makes me suspicious. Countries often introduce new currencies when something is wrong, like here in Norway. We got new paper money, and in 2015, they really injected a lot of money supply into the system. I have written an article about that. It's on my blog, and I'll put it in the show notes. Considering all that, it's just overwhelming that there's a little bit more to the Bitcoin story than meets the eye. And let's say it even was created by a hermit. As I said before, it's only a matter of time before a determined government or group can crack the code and figure this one out. In the end, it's always determination and persistence that wins. We've seen that all throughout history. So, in short, Bitcoin is nothing more than a sponge to divert people from gold, which is truly out of government control, truly out of even nature's control. It's a cosmic element. It doesn't need anything. It comes from the stars. It doesn't need people. It doesn't need any infrastructure or an internet connection. And so nobody can control it. You can wear it. It can be jewelry. It's even medicine. I see it like that. I see it. It's just it's a sponge. It's a money sponge. It's to divert disenfranchised people who normally would have gone into gold into put them into cryptocurrencies where you can still keep them in control. It covertly pushes the unruly back into the system in a way that lets them feel like they're empowered and they're getting away with something. We have seen this over and over throughout history. If you read history of governments and Machiavelli and just think about it for a while, you'll see that ruling people always are thinking of clever ways to manipulate us. In short, like I've said this before, it's been in the making for a while and evolved over time, probably a very long time, just like computers and the internet and everything else. It started out in a laboratory and they're playing with it, and then they rolled it out during an opportune time, like a financial crisis. It's some kind of experiment. So believe in this at your own peril. You know, economics is the collision between mathematics and psychology. And Bitcoin depends on both mathematics and psychology to survive, but it also depends on man-made infrastructure, internet and electricity, both things that can be cut off. You know, as I posted the picture here on the blog that our National Bank of Norway network went down. I couldn't trade stocks that day. I couldn't move any money. I couldn't pay bills. It was really crippling. So Bitcoin depends on man-made infrastructure. So in short, it's a pure psychological play and nothing more, because you can't wear those Bitcoins. You can't eat them. You can't, you know, if the system goes down, you don't have them in your pocket. I mean, you might have them on a USB stick, but it needs to transact through the internet. Think about that, and next we'll be moving on to gold and silver. Okay, so now we're on to precious metals. Which metals that people trade? It's gold and silver, but not copper, platinum, or palladium, which ones they consider are forms of money. Gold and silver are rare. They don't corrode so quickly, and they're abundant enough. They're rare, but yet abundant enough that they can be used as a currency. You know, there's enough supply. Copper is too common, and platinum and palladium are just not abundant enough to be, used as a money supply, although they hold value and have all these other properties of money. Things usually fall on gold and silver, and that's what most of the people in this gold and silver community will tell you. It's been around as money for 5,000 years. It's been around forever, as long as the universe is old, but humans have been using it for money for at least 5,000 years. And it's one of my personal favorite investments because, you know, I'm into wearing gold chains and gold rings. I think it's kind of cool. An ounce of gold, no matter what is printed on it, is still an ounce of gold. You can melt it down and reform it. The gold is still there. So if it has like a stamp from Mexico and you take it in the US, it's still an ounce of gold. You know, it's still worth roughly $1,300. If it has a Russian stamp or a Ukrainian stamp on it, as long as it holds that 1 ounce, 31.1 grams, the value is the same. So what's printed on the coin, it's just at face value. It's the actual coin itself holding the value, whereas in currencies, it's what's printed defines the value. So if you rip up a $20 bill and burn it, it's not worth anything. I mean, I guess the treasury would give you your money back. But that's one of the reasons why people like gold a lot. But I wanted to talk about something more because, this kind of stuff you can find all over the internet, like why gold is so great. But I want to talk about my experience with gold and silver. especially living between two countries. You have to understand that not all gold and silver are created equal. There is a difference between what is called legal tender and bullion gold. So legal tender gold is considered money in the government's eyes instead of a commodity or an asset. Legal tender gold, for example, like these American gold eagles or these Norwegian gold coins from the Norwegian bank, with the skiing on it from Lillehammer, they have like a face value of like 1,500 kroner, or the U.S. gold 1 ounce eagles have a $50 face value. Those actually get the same status as money and not an asset, which means you can take them across borders without paying tariffs on them or duties because it's government issued. And it's I don't know, it's a very obscure fact, but if you come in with gold chains to Norway, you actually have to pay tax on them as if they were a gift. But if you come in with gold coins, there's no tax because it's considered a form of money. So when you're buying gold, always buy government issued gold, with a face value that's got a legal tender status. And this is like I said, the American gold eagles, the Canadian maple leafs, the Australian nuggets, the British sovereigns. These are among the most popular ones. There's some Swiss francs from the early 1900s that are very popular. And then here in Norway, we have these 1,500 crown gold coins. They're half ounce. This is the one time that the government is good. And moreover, these coins are easily assayed and everyone knows what they are. They're in guides. The weights are known. The dimensions are known. So it's very easy to detect fakes. Whereas in bullion gold, they can put tungsten rods in the middle. The thing about tungsten is it happens mostly on larger blocks of gold because tungsten is very brittle. You can't make tungsten coins so easily because it'll just break in half. It's a very hard substance. It's about the same weight of gold, but gold is malleable. Gold bends, and you can abuse gold pretty good, but tungsten cracks. So there's less chance you'll get a tungsten counterfeit if you buy legal tender gold coins. So people are asking, if gold is so great, why is it lagging? Why has it always just been off its highs in dollar terms? It's at highs in Norwegian terms, Norwegian crown terms, and other countries' terms. But in dollar terms, it's still 50% off its $1,900 high back in May 2011 or something like that. What would it take for gold to go mainstream? Well, the main issue is that it's not easy to transact. It's not easy to exchange gold. I mean, in the old days, you could, people knew what it was and there were coins. There's no way to directly pay for anything with gold. Like you have to go and, get it, sell it, and usually get a bad rate, and then you get cash and then you buy something with that cash and you don't get change back in gold either. You can't opt for that. So let's say they do take your gold coin, they'll probably give you change back in currency. This is like a challenge for financial technology. We always hear this term FinTech. This is their challenge. Why don't they make gold and silver relevant? Right now, there's this system called gold money, which was formerly known as BitGold, which is supported by Peter Schiff. But I haven't seen any payment plugins for this. I have a BitGold account. And I have to give up all my details, all my government details, so that they can track me. So yes, the gold itself sitting in that vault is untraceable and undestructible, but the system to get to that gold in that vault requires me giving up a lot of personal information. I've shared emails with Chris Dewayne at the Silver Shield, the one who writes The Greatest Truth Never Told. It's a series of YouTubes that's very enlightening, and I recommend it for everybody. And Christian Garcia at goldsilver.com about this topic. Why don't they develop a precious metals point of sale system, like a cash register combined with like a assay machine? So you just put like a chunk of gold in any form into this payment system like machine, and it tells you exactly what the value is, and the person can accept that gold as payment, and it's assigned a dollar value or NOK value or something, and then they can give you change back in a form of gold or in a form of currency, whatever you wish. It should be that easy to pay for something. Then I think gold would come into mainstream. I'm not sure why all these gold dealers and people with a lot of money in the gold business and people who've made a killing are not funding this. I've talked to them and they've been very reluctant, or they've just been unresponsive. But this is what's needed. Chris Duane called it like a electronic pawn shop, but it's not really that. It's a payment system. It's a cash register, and it would be cool if you could just walk into a store and plop down, your gold chain and get something, and it's automatically assayed. You could even get your change in like some earrings or something smaller. Immediately the machine would be smart enough to do this. The technology is out there. It's just I wish I had the means, I would build this. I think it would be really cool. And this is probably the bottom line why Bitcoin is rising and gold is just, floating in the wind, or gold is just moving flat. It's not easy to buy directly with it. Okay, so wrapping up this podcast, economics is the collision between mathematics and psychology. Bitcoin depends far more on the psychological aspects than the mathematical ones, making it very, very volatile. In fact, it's completely dependent on belief. As much as all these social media and internet things, it's electrons. For now, Bitcoin seems to have momentum, but who knows what can happen in the future. I would advise people to have a short-term Bitcoin strategy, just to get something paid off or to switch it to gold or something else as it rises, and to take exits, measured exits as it keeps rising. Remember, we discussed the history of search engines and social media, that what was popular 10, 20 years ago is totally different than what is today. And then what we want to close on, and this is the challenge for any of these gold and silver advocates out there with means, is that gold and silver needs to become easy to transact so that it can become mainstream once again. It has to be in any form. I can put any kind of gold down and quickly it's already known what it's worth, and then I can take the goods I need and get some change. That's where this technology has to go. I would like to thank everybody for this being on this podcast. I hope that you all can like and subscribe to the podcast. We're going to be putting it on the Google store pretty soon. Recently, I think it's now allowed in Norway. Before we couldn't get onto these other mediums from outside the U.S., but now I think we can. And then also please like us on social media and spread the word as much as you can. We're really trying to grow this podcast and get this rational message out there. We are libertarian, but we're very realistic about it, and we see, what needs to be done to make these ideals prevail.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and follow us on social media.